All right, we're here to talk about disruption. So sometimes disruption is loud, other times it operates in stealth mode. Categories get dusty, and strategies have a way of becoming formulaic. But just because it's been done a certain way forever doesn't mean that it still works or that there isn't another way to approach the problem. So we've put together a panel of founders who have identified a white space. They've zigged when everyone else has zagged, and it's a unique skill, and it requires confidence, it requires vision, it requires the ability to make others follow. And as you'll hear today, the road isn't always straight, and sometimes it requires actually building a whole new road. So, each of you has built formidable businesses in areas of beauty that were underserved or frankly ignored by the industry. So, Michele, let's start with you. When you founded Iris&Romeo, it seemed like the entire beauty industry was squarely focused on Gen Z, and they were ignoring the needs of women over 40. So what was your vision for the brand, and how does it speak to this incredibly valuable demographic of women?
Yeah, hi everyone. Good to see all your faces. So yes, I was in the beauty industry, have been in the beauty industry for 20 years and worked with another fast-growing indie brand that we took through acquisition. And I was pretty burned out after that journey. But I felt really disconnected with the industry itself. There were a lot of things that I didn't love about it, lack of sustainability, lack of transparency, lack of inclusivity. But one of the things that really pissed me off was that nobody was talking to women like me, women who were over 40, who had busy modern lives. You know, we were being sold 10-step routines, fast beauty, like more. It was just this whole issue of excess. And I was in a totally different place in my life where I wanted to really simplify and pare down, and I was aging. I needed things that worked for my skin. And so when I left the brand that I was working for, I was like, okay, this time I'm going to do it differently. This time I'm going to do it on my terms. And I identified 3 areas that were really important to me and also all of my girlfriends. One was formulating for drier skin, aging skin, right? A lot of the formulas looked dry on my skin and didn't look healthy or glowy. So it was formulating for my skin type, texture. I was getting wrinkles and lines. And then this idea of 10 steps, like I wanted 3 products in one or 5 products in one, and came up with the very first product, Best Skin Days, which was makeup, skincare, SPF, all in one. And this was 2017, so this was before anybody had done anything like that. And then lastly, it was just, I really, and I still am very passionate about this, like creating a brand that resonates with this modern older woman, like older millennials, Gen X, who have better things to do than spend hours getting ready, that just want to simplify their routine and have sort of a less is more approach, not just to beauty, but to their life. Like really what's really important, what can I prioritize? How do I prioritize? These are big questions that come up in midlife. And so tackling that with new language, let's not talk about anti-aging, let's talk about skin wellness, like how do we turn it around so it's really relevant for this modern woman who, by the way, I'm not living like my mother. I love my mother to death, but none of us are living like our mothers. This is a time where we are at midlife doing amazing things. So I wanted that heart and soul to come into the brand, and hopefully it is.
It is. Thank you so much. So we have 2 Davids on the panel. So David Gaylord, this one's for you.
Yeah.
So when you were building Bushbalm, you were attempting to disrupt probably one of the most boring aisles in any retailer, the shave aisle. Tell us about your vision for Bushbalm, and also like what made you so sure that the aisle needed to be disrupted after doing the same thing for about 40 years.
Yeah, when we launched Bushbalm, I don't come from beauty. I don't come from beauty, so knowing like an Ulta, Sephora, like where products were sold was kind of new to me. And what I realized is I grew up in a town of about 2,000 people, and the like place that I saw and learned and like saw products and evolution was the local pharmacy. And it was like a dingy local pharmacy. It's still there. I still love it. But what I realized over the years is a lot of categories had changed. And as I'd go home, the only category that legitimately didn't change was the hair removal category. And you would see products that were made. There's one that we compete against still to this day that was made in 1985, and it's still the same formula. It's alcohol-based. It's horrible. If you look at the packaging, you would go, it's pretty obvious somebody needs to do something here. So at first, we didn't say we're going to disrupt. We just naturally kind of fell into this place, and over time, every single year, I get more confident that what we're doing is the right thing because consumers are saying it, and Ulta is a great partner of ours who has really taken this approach of making it a much better category than it was 20 years ago, which a lot of retailers are still stuck in.
Yeah. And Katy, similarly, you set out to reframe a category that was historically associated with a bit of maybe some shame and embarrassment. Tell us about your vision, and how do you change people's minds when you're entering a category that they try to keep a secret?
So to tell you my vision, I suppose I have to give the authentic story of where it came from, and the journey for Luna Daily, although we've only been in market 2.5 years, started back when I was a teenager, and I'd been studying in India, and I was really unwell, so I was put on this course of antibiotics for 6 weeks, and it completely screwed my microbiome, my gut, my skin. I had all sorts of health issues, and I got a UTI infection, and I got a yeast infection for the first time.
Katy, I don't want to interrupt you. Can you just adjust your mic? Because I think the audience is having a problem hearing you.
Where is
It's on
it?
the other side. It's on the other side.
Where?
Oh, maybe it did fall off.
I think it's
Maybe that's the problem.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, here it is. Wait.
oh, here it is. Here it is.
We can't feel where it is.
There we go.
All right, well,
I
there's...
don't know if you want to hold it.
Oh, and we were just when we were starting to feel like Britney Spears.
I know. Sorry.
Let me get you some help. Would you mind helping her with her mic?
me. Like,
So much noise back there.
What's that?
Noise back there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there you go. Let's do
That's
it that
the kids'
way.
microphone.
Even better.
And we were all saying backstage we were so excited to wear Britney mics. Did you hit anything then, or do I have to start again?
You could start. You could start
Okay.
over.
19-year-old, had a really intensive course of antibiotics that completely screwed my microbiome. I got a yeast infection for the first time, and I can still today remember how embarrassed and ashamed and confused I felt. For me, from that moment onwards, I wasn't able to use traditional body care products to care for my intimate skin. Body washes, soaps, other products. But I really resented that the only solutions available to me were these feminine hygiene products. And they sit in this category that we can probably all imagine. It's embarrassing to shop. The products are pretty crap. And ever since then, I felt like this is an underserving category for women and people with vulvas. And fast forward my career, so I was at L'Oreal, and then most recently I was global head of brand at Charlotte Tilbury. And I still haven't worked out whether I serendipitously did that or was unconscious. But I was telling a friend about this idea I'd had about this category that nothing was going on in. And I was staying at her house, and I was sharing her bathroom. And as I was telling her the story, she stopped in her tracks and pulled me up to her bathroom, and she opened the cupboard, and she'd hidden a feminine wash in the cupboard. And she was at a very different life stage to me. My experience was from a teenage age, whereas she was a mum. But we shared this shame and about what caring for this body part that as a woman is, so important. And it got me questioning, why are we so embarrassed and in the dark about a body part? Hands up if you were taught the word vulva growing up. 2 people. And because we're kept in the dark and because we don't talk about this body part, and also, why do we even need products to care for our vulvas? So I have to do this because a massive part of my mission is to normalize the conversation and to help raise education. But if you take nothing away from today, but it's that you know that the vulva and the vagina are different, my work will be done. So very simply, vagina, internal part of the female anatomy, never needs to be washed with any products, including even water. Vulva, external, actually very similar to the skin under your arms. And it got me thinking, so why do we even need these specific products? Why have we been marketed that we need these specific products? cut a long story short, I quit my job at Charlotte's Tilbury in pandemic 1 after conducting some research that proved it wasn't just me that felt this way, and set out to create Luna Daily. So with the help of our medical collective, our strapline is head, vulva, knees and toes, and we are a microbiome balancing body care brand for all skin, even your most intimate. And we cater for all ages, stages, skin types, and we have different product regimes. Like, yes, we have washes, but we have an on-the-go format, we have oils. And I think we uniquely bridge 2 categories, actually. So yes, we speak to an intimate care shopper. You know, the tension or issue with that category is it's fundamentally niche use and the products are not enjoyable to use. On the other side, we also bridge the body care category, also in, you know, brilliant growth, a much bigger category opportunity in terms of market size. But these are the products that are actually causing gynecological problems for nearly 1 in 2 women. And so I think how we've approached the category in terms of making it more inclusive and accessible, honestly, actually, my big mission, well, my mission is to connect women to each other and their entire bodies, but I want to get rid of the feminine hygiene category as we know it. And Kelly Kovac will admit, when I first launched the brand and asked her for a meeting, she was one of the first people I ever met, Kelly admitted to being like, oh, I don't think I want to go meet this fan. They're like another femme brand selling women stuff they don't need. And by the end of meeting with me, she said, you know, you've completely turned a category on its head. And she said, you've captured an opportunity in plain sight. Hence, this feels very relevant.
Well, similarly, I remember when Katy first told me about the next entrepreneur on our panel, David DiLorenzo. You know, for years, David, the nail category was the historical afterthought of the beauty industry. You built Veep Beauty Pure to take on a few but very formidable legacy players, and then you kind of went one step further by launching a nail business online, which is sort of heresy in some circles. And then last night you were just showing me images of some of your community who are now tattooing your logo on their bodies. So something has worked about that vision that you had. Tell us a little bit about the vision and what gave you the confidence to go out and set out to disrupt an industry that was dominated by so many legacy players.
Thank you for having me. Testing, can you guys hear me? Just making sure. Yes?
Yeah,
okay.
now we can.
I can speak so loud I don't even need the mic. Over the last 30 or 40 years, as you said, legacy brands, the nail industry has been dominated by mainly the 10 manufacturers that basically have other brands underneath them and traditional brick and mortar distribution. And because I'm 3rd generation in the beauty business, I had a bird's eye view of the marketplace. So in 2017, when I was developing the product, I saw that, you know what, a lot of these brands are building themselves on social media, and I saw an angle there because I saw the future of the business going to a prosumer market because the legacy brands were so focused on distribution and putting curated imagery on Instagram, like the perfect curated imagery. And you know what? I said, in 2017, we started developing product, and I realized on Instagram we could reach out. Besides Instagram, Facebook also had thousands of groups. And I saw a whole new era of nail techs coming out. And I was like, they're becoming these influencers. So I saw macro and micro. And just like you would be in distribution, I decided to, in New York, start working with certain people in certain territories. I could reach out to the salon owners and the nail professional in the New York area, Florida, Detroit, Chicago, Texas, and LA. So just like if you were in distribution, you work in territories, I did the same thing. And in 2017, you know, basically I started giving product away to these nail techs and having feedback as we were developing the product. And we did a campaign that I basically gave out product to X amount of nail technicians, and all of them were creating content. And we kept pushing out user-generated content with macro and micro influencers, and we did like this campaign of shh, it's coming, and did this whole big thing to create the demand. So in 2018, when we dropped the product, there was such a demand for it at the trade show, and we only did one trade show, that there was an 8-hour line for 3 days in the nail section, which has never been seen before. So I said, okay, we have something now. And the thing that we wanted to focus on was building a community. So when you asked about the tattoos, the reason that the artists are tattooing our brand on themselves is I built an opportunity with the nail technicians that was to help them get out from behind the table. So there was different outlets for them to, make money now. Now they're online, they get commission. Now I'm gonna help you and teach you how to teach others and make money in class. So we focused big time on education and built an ambassador team and built a community of like-minded people, and we call ourselves like the misfits, right? So because the other brands were basically super corporate, and we went totally the opposite route. And then to get to the tattoo issue, one day we're having an education training at our headquarters, and we have a showroom. And in our business, there was no such thing as showrooms. It was basically just outside in distribution. And in the middle of that showroom, we decided I don't have any tattoos. I got a brand tattoo. My cousin got a brand tattoo. My father got a tattoo. And some of the team members got a tattoo. And we made that video, and that video went viral. And then all of the people that we helped influence and help change their lives started showing up and supporting us. And I never in a million years would think that people would tattoo our brand, but that happened over the last 5 years, and people continue doing it, and I still don't know what to say about it.
Well, I love it. In business as in life, whenever we set out to go against the grain, we're often met with skepticism and a little bit of doubt, and sometimes that requires us convincing people to sort of go along with our vision of the world, and then at other times it requires us to sort of go it alone and to figure things out on our own. So let's talk about some of the skepticism quickly, because I'm watching the time, but let's talk about some of the skepticism specifically as it relates to skepticism from the investment community. So Katy and Michele, you've both spent time in the proverbial Shark Tank. And eventually you found a few great investment partners, but the journey wasn't easy. So Katy, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about some of the skepticism you met when you went to the marketplace to raise some money?
How long have you got? I'm going to try and be efficient then. I think, look, I'm preaching to the converted in the room of knowing that as a solo female founder in general, you're going to find it harder to raise capital, particularly if you're like me, where I knew nothing about fundraising. I think it's like politics and mortgages. We're not taught at school, so you have to learn on the job. But I think outside of just the generic skepticism, I think you could put on any brand within the space, within the economic climate we've had the last few years. And for context, so we've raised both private investment and we've raised through institutional investment. So we've got venture capital partners. I think the most skepticism was the first time I tried to fundraise. Sorry, not tried, I did, I suppose, I did do it. And I think it was partly, most of the people I was speaking to didn't have a vulva. And so, or they might have done, to be fair. I don't think lots of them did. And I think, there was lots. First of all, it made them feel quite uncomfortable. You can tell I'm totally desensitized. I have no issue saying it anymore. But for a lot of these people, I could physically see on the Zoom calls their discomfort. But I would just say, look, go and speak to your daughter or your wife or your girlfriend. Let me send them some product. And by meeting number 2, the skepticism was gone. But I also think, they could see the wider economic and macro trends going on within both intimate care, wellness, and the body care category. I'm going to say it's also not gendered. I've had really bad experiences from women as well. So I think sometimes the gender debate misses some of the bigger things at play around, backgrounds, etc. But I think definitely having our go-to-market strategy helped. So the first time I raised venture capital, who became my lead investor said no. So I think I had the meeting with them in April. They said no. I WhatsApped him in August and was like, so I know you said no, but could you maybe consider? And we'd landed, at this point, a deal with Sephora North America, so we became the first intimate body care brand to be listed in a Sephora North America door and online. And so I think our go-to-market strategy has really helped. And from the beginning, I always knew we were going to be an omnichannel retail business because it's what I know, but also I think it's how people want to shop these categories. But I think the wider thing is a bit of serendipity in the timing. That even if I tried to launch this business 5 years ago, it would have been too soon.
Yeah, Michele, quickly, tell us how it went for you when you went to the marketplace.
So I first of all, raised angel capital, which was not easy. Raising capital is not easy, but I was successful in that, mostly with my network. And then institutional capital, my first investors in my seed round. I've since have another lead investor for Series A. But I mean, let's face it, like I'm a female and less than 2% of venture capital goes to female founders. So there's that reality that you're dealing with. It's definitely a boys' club, although it's changing, and thank God for that. And I'm in the beauty industry, and the beauty industry is a lot about emotion and storytelling. And, you're sitting in a room with a bunch of guys, and no offense to the guys in here, I'm sure a lot of people understand this, but it's very matter-of-fact, very data-driven kinds of conversations that you have. And quite honestly, and we had data. We'd launched D2C, and we had very good data, and we had a white space because everybody was talking to a younger audience, and so we had data that showed we had captured this 35-plus woman. But truly what turned the table was a female investor in this venture capital fund that was a busy working mom who tried Best Skin Days, absolutely loved it. She got ready and out there in 2 minutes every morning. It had the clinical skincare she wanted, and it gave her just a fresh, natural look. And she was like, oh my God, the texture's amazing. Everything about this is so good. And my routine is super fast. So she convinced all the guys on the team, like, she's onto something, and this woman is not being talked to. So here's to the women. They were the advocates, and she's still a really great friend, so.
I love it. Well, it's important to note that David, you guys have not gone to the equity markets just yet. But let's talk about skepticism sort of in another sense. As we heard earlier today on my panel this morning, how to get to $100 million. Brick and mortar partnerships are sort of a key piece to that. So, to date, you guys have you both sort of have a traditional retail strategy, but you've also built sizable businesses selling into the professional channel, which of course is endlessly fascinating to me. Given how disparate the professional side of the business is, how do you build your professional distribution networks? And how did you convince salons, for example, to take a chance on you and to work with you? So David Gaylord, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, one thing that people don't realize is everyone talks about pros, and there's a lot of different pro models. And we've kind of built a similar one where I worked at Shopify, so like tech and that background. We looked at the pro channel more as a channel that you can build with tech to get people in and replenishing and make it easy for them. Whereas the traditional model is go to distributors, they're kind of difficult to work with, and then you've got to send product everywhere, you got to train, you got to educate them, it's this whole thing. And what we realized is the waxing salon, and actually my favorite stat is there's 10 times more waxing and nail salons in the US than there are Starbucks.
Wow.
So there's 360,000, it's like an absurd number. And in the waxing side of it all, the amount that are serviced by a distributor is probably maybe 5-10% or even less. And what we realized is that means 90% of the whole market is not serviced whatsoever. And for us, we kind of took that risk, and we now have over 6,000 waxing salons that carry us, and they're almost all independents. We have no distributors. It's incredibly difficult to do. You can figure out how to do it, but it's a 7-year journey we've been on. But what I've realized is that market itself is so worth it because you have these ambassadors, you have these people that love you, share you, talk about you, and disrupting and kind of capturing opportunities. Nobody else really cares, which is good for us because we deeply care. So we can really drive the brand forward, and the pros help with all of our other channels because they're talking about us. There's probably 15, 20,000 estheticians every day talking about Bushbalm. That, like, it's got to be a good thing, right?
So we talked about the TikTok creator network earlier, and your creator network is the 20,000 people in your salons talking about your product every day. That is brilliant. David DiLorenzo, how about you? How did you convince people to take Be Beauty Pure?
Well, in the pro market, as I said, we first gave away product, and the most credentialed, basically consumer would be a pro. So once that pro switches the line, meaning if they buy a line and invest in your full line, that's a big investment for them, especially if they have a salon of 10 or 15 employees. So once they buy it, they're all in on you. And then you have all of their staff helping promote you as well. So, professionals, everything was word of mouth. Our nail professionals sold the product for us. Once they got a hand on it, if they loved it, it was very sticky. Like, our retention rate is extremely high. So what David just touched on before was that the nail industry and the waxing, the distribution is, the nail industry right now is about to explode. Everybody wants to come into the nail space. From celebrities to new companies, everybody's looking at nails because they're seeing it all over social media, and now it's cool. It's not an afterthought anymore. So for the brand, what happened was in the distribution, there's only really Sally's, Cosmoprof, Salon Centric, and then the family distributors got bought up by those three conglomerates in around 2010 and 12. So realistically, the only way to get to the consumer, to the nail tech, was via social media, in my opinion. Or the other route was driving the nail tech, driving the consumer to the nail tech because of the amount of volume that they see online of our product, and they want to try it. So after they keep hearing, do you have VBP, do you have VBP, do you have VBP, they end up buying it and then trying it. So that's kind of how we got into the marketplace.
Yeah. It's so funny? Looking at all of your businesses, people will definitely say to themselves, or they'll say to others, they'll be like, yeah, of course that makes sense now after the fact, 5 years after the fact, right? But the question is, how do you remain disruptive and how do you remain innovative now that everyone is saying, yeah, of course that makes sense, and now everyone's coming to the nail space, and now everyone's approaching the waxing salons. Like, how do you remain disruptive when the competition comes? And we just have a couple minutes, and I want to get to every one of you. So Michele, why don't we start with you, and then we'll go down the row.
Yeah, I'm in a business, I'm in a space that is super competitive. And for me, remaining disruptive is staying very, very close to my why. So it's not looking right or left. I try not to do that as much as possible because it's never brought me anything but unhappiness. And so just really connecting back to my own story. And, when I founded Iris&Romeo, I had been on a journey where I went to live with a herd of wild horses. Some of you guys may or may not know this. And the short version, because I know we don't have a lot of time, is it was sort of a big life reset for me. It was a big moment, a very spiritual moment, actually, where recovering from burnout, where it was like asking a question of what's really essential for my skin, for myself, and my life. And that became the ethos of the brand, this idea of paring down and really focusing and prioritizing what's important. And I just keep going deeper and deeper into that story and asking myself, why am I doing this? Why do people love this? And finding really more creative ways to tell that story and to connect with people, because at the end of the day, this industry is about connection and about stories. And so my story is one story. We try to tell many women's stories, and I think it's always innovative, it's always different, it's always interesting. I really believe that's where it's disruptive, more on the emotional connection side. And of course, innovation is a big part of that, but I'll let some others speak.
Quickly then, having an authentic story, like you can't copy my story, and it's the story that I've become comfortable with telling and force myself to not be embarrassed because it's the thing that connects with people when I do. Obviously, making your proposition as defensible as possible. You know, we have trademarked formulations, we own all the IP, we have bespoke tooled packaging. They're things that, you know, people will come and copy, and they already are. And so I try not to look at what the competition is doing and just stay focused on what we're doing. Continuing to innovate. You know, we started out as a brand that wanted to make daily washing routines more simplified and inclusive of all body parts. But we've since just launched the first motherhood range ever in Sephora, because, you know, most of the changes that happens to women's bodies through motherhood are to their body, but also because I really believe that nipples, perineums, butts, boobs, belly, stretch marks should all be talked about and should not be taboo. So continuing to innovate. And then I think really picking your route to market strategy. That, you know, I really believe that Sephora are the global trailblazers, and it does so much to consumer behavior, the fact that somebody can buy a body product you can use on your vulva next to skincare, next to makeup, but also they don't have this like deep-rooted stigma of the category where femme hygiene has existed. You know, I launched onto the next big thing wall, and I'm launching into body care fixture, and that for your brand I think is so important of where you show up as part of your defensibility against, you know, competition.
David DiLorenzo, how do you remain disruptive?
So I'm in a unique position where we had tunnel vision on building D2C and using basically our customers as advocates. That's the #1 thing that we did. And if the competitors show up in the space that we're in right now, that is good news for us because we did the right thing, right? So then we have to basically bet down on customer experience, make sure that we keep innovating, and I wanted to make sure that we got to a certain number on D2C before we went to distribution, because you have leverage when the distribution is coming to you rather than you trying to sell them. So our whole entire business model is make them come to you. And by being disruptive, when they come into our space, I'm gonna pull the trigger and go into their space.
Got it. David
Trying to keep you on time here.
Sorry.
The one thing I always think is I don't come from beauty. I come from like family business where my dad hated distribution. Like he hated it. They sold hardwood flooring, which is primarily sold through distribution. So he was D2C before it was cool. So he always taught me to like disrupt yourself. And last year, one thing that we've done is we didn't disrupt in a different way. We disrupted ourselves by doing limited edition scent. And that became a big part of the brand. And now it's a new thing we do. And next year we'll launch 16 products where traditionally we would have launched 2 or 3. So to me, it's always just your business model exists now. It might not exist the same it should next year or the year after. And you always have to think about different ways to disrupt each part of your business instead of just kind of thinking status quo.
All right, well, thank you so much. I want to take one question from the audience, even though we're tight on time. So does anyone have a question for the panel?
No.
Oh, we have a question up here. Sweet.
Don't ask me.
I just wanted to say bravo to both you women for talking about mature skin and for talking about intimate parts, and it's not talked about enough. And I just wanted to celebrate you, so thank you.
Thanks.
I love it. Well, thank you guys so much. This was such a this was one of my favorite panels to prepare for because I loved my conversations with each of you, and I know that the audience learned a lot today about you and your brand. So thank you so much, and yeah, thanks for being so generous with sharing all of your experiences.